What's going on, folks? Ted from Immersion here, and I just wanted to talk about Tridents, and what's the deal with Tridents? I don't get it. This is kind of going to probably be a short video, but I just wonder why they got treated the way they did. They fall into the same bucket as a couple of other weapons, and honestly, with the exception of like the one or two magic items, why would you ever use one? Is my question. So as we dive into this journey about knowledge on Tridents and what the point of them even existing in 5th edition is, let's talk a little bit about the sponsor for today's video, our returning friends at Skillshare. So just like we're going to learn about Tridents today, you can use Skillshare to learn something new for yourself. If you're unfamiliar with Skillshare, they're everywhere on the internet, I'm sure you are, but it's an online learning community where you can take a various amount of courses on a varying degree of different things. Everything from interior design to editing to cooking and so on. So what I'm currently going through is Trident, getting started by Paul, I'm going to say Geisk? I don't know how you pronounce it. Sorry, Paul. But Trident is the tool that I use for doing thumbnails and things like that. It's same as GIMP and any other kind of tool like that, but it's the one that I've personally been using. So I've been watching this, and really, because all I pretty much use it for is just editing, cutting and pasting different parts of thumbnails, but I want to get more into the concept of using brushes and actually playing around with all the power that the tool has. So anyway, if you want to pick up a copy of Skillshare Premium for yourself, there is a 1-month free subscription. There's a link in the description down below that you can click on to get that 1 month free of Skillshare Premium. So thank you, Skillshare, for sponsoring this video. So let's jump over to the player's handbook here, and oops, I'll show you right here. We have all of the different weapons contained in the player's handbook. Now you can see the simple weapons here, the variety of them, the simple range weapons, and then we get into the martial melee weapons here, right? So you can see down the bottom is the Trident. Now, mind you, martial melee weapons, for the most part, mean you need to have a proficiency. Now, you technically need to have a proficiency in certain simple weapons, but this is a higher caliber of weapon, as it were, right? You usually need some form of battle training to get access to have these as a proficiency for your class to use. So if we look at the Trident, first of all, it costs 5 gold pieces. It does a d6 piercing damage. It weighs 4 pounds, kind of irrelevant, but it has a thrown range of 20-60, and it can be wielded versatilely, which means if you wield it with 2 hands, it does a d8 damage. Well, let's scroll up and look at our good friend, the Spear. The Spear is only 1 gold piece. It does a d6 piercing damage. It only weighs 3 pounds, so a whole pound lighter, and has the exact same properties of thrown, 20-60, and versatile for a d8. So when you look at these, fundamentally, they are exactly the same. One just costs 5 times as much, weighs 1 pound more, and requires you to be proficient with martial weapons to be able to utilize it. So I guess you could argue at this point, well, maybe it's just a flavor thing, you know, I want to wield a Trident, but in all honesty, maybe someone who's more of a weapon expert out there, someone like Shadiversity or someone like that, can tell me the true differences in wielding a Trident versus a Spear in terms of martial combat. But there's one more thing we need to look at. So if we go back to the same book, the Player's Handbook, and we go and we look at the feat section. Now, this wasn't originally the case, so I'll start there. But if we go and look at Polearm Master, now this was updated in recent erratas, but the Polearm Master feat states it works when you take the attack action and you are wielding a glaive, halberd, quarterstaff, or spear. You can make a bonus action attack with this, hitting them with the other end of it, dealing a d4 bludgeoning damage. Also, while you're wielding a glaive, halberd, pike, quarterstaff, or spear, other creatures provoke an attack of opportunity for you when they enter the reach of your weapon. Now, granted, spear and quarterstaff, the reach is only 5 feet, where the other ones have 10-foot reach, but still. Also interesting that the attack action for the glaive, halberd, quarterstaff, and spear get the first function, but pike gets left out for the second one. But my point being, if we were to go back and look at that weapons list, fundamentally, at least mechanically, as far as the game is concerned, a spear and a trident are identical, yet only the spear gets to benefit from Polearm Master. Now, a simple homebrew fix you could do would just be allow Trident to be part of Polearm Master, and I probably would allow that if I were you, but one thing I thought I had originally remembered was maybe the reason you had Trident was it functioned normally underwater, right? Typically, Tridents have a water connotation to them, right? We're used to that in popular culture. So maybe just the Trident, that's the benefit, right? Maybe the Trident is exactly the same as the spear, except it works fully functionally underwater. Well, let's go ahead and look at the underwater. I don't remember if it's in here or it's in... you know what, I think it's actually in the player's handbook, so we'll go back to the player's handbook, and we'll go to underwater combat. That's under the combat section, here it is. So, normally, when underwater, things work differently. When making a melee weapon attack, a creature that doesn't have a swimming speed, so obviously if you have a swimming speed, this is irrelevant, but let's say you don't, neither natural or granted by magic, or has disadvantage on attack rolls unless they are using a dagger, javelin, short sword, spear, or trident. And then if we read further, even against ranged weapon attacks automatically miss, even against a target within normal range, this is beyond a normal range, even against a target within normal range, the attack roll has disadvantage unless the weapon is a crossbow, a net, or a weapon that is thrown like a javelin, including a spear, trident, or dart. So, fundamentally, the Trident, what you would imagine to be the king of underwater combat, is fundamentally exactly the same as the spear in underwater combat as well. So really, the spear is the ideal weapon compared to the Trident. It is cheaper, it is lighter, it functions exactly the same as the Trident in every way, with the exception of it being able to use Polearm Master. I guess the offside is the Trident, you can get a Trident of Fish Command, but you can't get a Spear of Fish Command. So I don't know, folks, that's just something that I've been thinking about for a long time, and I wanted to poll you guys. What do you think? Obviously, this is kind of a silly topic to discuss, but, you know, I was trying to think of something interesting and different to make a video on. So... has this come up in your games? Because it's definitely realistically come up in mine. My good friend Sean loves the concept of a trident, but then when you look at possibly wielding one, you say, well, spear's better in every way. So again, my simple quick fix is to allow the trident to work with Polearm Master. I don't think that breaks the game in any way, considering, again, fundamentally the same. It does leave the potential option open for an interesting feat that functions for tridents. Now, again, we know we originally were going to get the concept of weapon-specific feats, and then they changed that over to the Bludgeoner, Piercer, Slasher feat, or Crusher, rather, Crusher, Piercer, Slasher feats. Whereas back in the Player's Handbook days, we got weapons that were feats that were specific to certain weapons, like Sharpshooter, Great Weapon Master, Polearm Master. So a Trident Master feat could be interesting. I don't know exactly what it would do and how it would differ from Polearm Master, but who knows? Maybe you guys have seen an interesting alternative in your travels on the internet, and if so, let me know what it is in the comments down below. But yeah, do you have a concept for an interesting homebrew Trident feat, or a way to use Tridents, or some way to make them better so that they can be fundamentally distinct from the spear? I don't want to take away the spear's ability to work underwater, because fundamentally it should work the same underwater as a Trident would. You know, the Trident isn't any more aerodynamic. In fact, it's probably less aerodynamic underwater than the spear is. So, like, I guess that would be one simple fix you could do, is the Trident functions normally underwater and the spear doesn't. But, like I said, I don't think that that's the answer. So, let me know in the comments. And again, maybe there's something I'm missing, but you guys let me know. Thank you to all of you for watching. Thank you to my patrons over on Patreon for continuing to support me and the channel. Thank you once again to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. And hey, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, while it's just one simple click for you, it is a huge help for me. So consider doing that. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.